we run out of source sheets, it means
We need one more.
it's excellent. Somebody will get to know the person they're sitting next to. That's Manash Min Hashamayim, exactly the right number. Perfect. Okay. Shalom uvracha. Oh, did everyone just notice the light that just came into the room?
I noticed.
Did you? Nachon, you saw it?
Right.
Huh?
I was here already.
Huh? Oh, that's obviously another light. There's so much light coming too. That's just yet more light. In fact, you can turn this. We don't need any of this stuff over there. That's really absolutely superfluous in this holy room. No, I was actually joking. No, no, you're so holy, but true. There is something very nice about the lights being off in here.
The light might be still on.
I know, you're very true. You're right. We're not on that level yet, but we should get there. Please God, by next week we should get there. We'll all be here with sunglasses by next week, Be'ezrat Hashem. Okay, so now really, I want to speak about the topic of Kiddush Levanah. Kiddush Levanah, or Birkat HaLevanah, the blessing that we make once a month on the moon. And I think that there's really a lot we can say about the monthly blessing on the moon. First of all, I just want to explain what it is. What do we say once a month on the moon? The second thing is I'd like to share some halachot pertaining to the blessing of the moon. And the third thing is I'd like to take some aspects of the tefillah that we say and to look at them in some detail. This won't be the comprehensive discussion on the blessing on the moon, but I hope at the end of our discussion we'll all know a little bit more about this very, very special blessing that we will know more at the end than we did at the beginning, but there'll still be much more for us to learn after the end of the lesson too. Okay, so let's start with what is Kiddush Levanah. So Kiddush Levanah is a blessing that we make each month. As you know, the moon waxes and wanes, and today is Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh means the first sighting of the new moon. You know, the moon waned until we couldn't see it anymore, and then the first sighting of the new moon is Rosh Chodesh, which we are celebrating today. After we see the new moon at the beginning of each month, we make a blessing on seeing the new moon, and that blessing that we say on seeing the new moon is Birkat HaLevanah or Kiddush Levanah. And it is on the sheet over here, both in English and in Hebrew. And I want to just read some of that with you. Okay, we say, Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, asher b'ma'amaro barash chakim. With your word you created shechakim, which has been translated here as galaxies. Uveruach piv kol tzva'am. And with the breath of his mouth, kol tzva'am, tzava is like their army, their chevra. Their chevra, that's not a good translation, but Chok uzman natan lahem. So God created this everything with fixed rules. Shelo yishanu et tafkidam, that they should stick to their course. In other words, the solar system of, but the Milky Way, there are billions and billions of stars, and each of these stars has got its unique orbit, right? Okay, now this is very interesting. Sasimu smechim lasot reson konam. These heavenly stars are full of happiness to do the will of God, which is interesting, attributing joy to the moon. And then po'ele met ufulato amet. This is talking to God. God, you said to the moon that it renews, meaning that it waxes and that it wanes. Ateret tiferet la'amuse vaten. Ateret tiferet. Ateret is a crown, a glorious crown la'amuse baten. Shehem atidim litchadesh kumota. That's really talking about us, who also renew ourselves. Ulefa'ol yotzram Hashem kod malchuta. Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, mechadesh chodashim, blessed are you God, who renews the month. That's the blessing. Huh?
I'm trying to think Shalom Aleichem, that's later.
You what? Who?
No, don't worry.
Okay. So that's the blessing. That's the blessing. Around that blessing, there are various supplementary prayers that we say, as we're saying Kiddush Levanah. A few of the interesting ones I underlined. There's so much we could look at over here, but we're not going to speak about all of it. One of the things is we say, first of all, you're supposed to dance in front of the moon. Where do we have that over here?
On the other page.
No, but we say, Kevin, where do we say? But we say, Kashem shani roked kenegdech v'lo yachol. Kashem shani roked ve'en yachol l'nkoach bach, kach lo yochlu kol oiva l'nkoa bi l'ra. At the beginning we say, just like I'm dancing in front of you, the moon, and I can't touch you, the moon, so my enemy should not be able to touch me and cause me pain. We're going to come back to that in a few minutes. So just, in brackets on that I'm dancing in front of the moon and I can't touch the moon. So I don't know if anyone follows the news, but about 60 years ago, somebody landed on the moon. So that's, we say, Ein yachol l'ngoa bach, I can't touch the moon. There was a guy that literally walked on the moon, which would seem to be a problem, but it's not a problem, because what we're saying is, I, right now, standing here in Kiryat Moshe, cannot touch the moon. It's not that man can't touch the moon. It's not that humanity can't get to the moon. The only question is, if an astronaut is on the moon at the time of Kiddush Levanah, can he say this verse? But right now, I can't touch the moon. It's not saying it's impossible to touch the moon. It's saying I can't. And indeed, I can't touch the moon. You follow? Now, then we dance, and then we say a few interesting things. We say, David Melech Yisrael Chai v'Kayam. David, King of Israel, will live forever. And then we greet each other. I say Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom.
You say, very good. You've done this before.
I've been doing it, let's see, for 12 months for the past 4 years? Yeah.
That's amazing. So this Shalom, we say that, which is an unusual, piece of the Kiddush Levanah. Then, after that, we say there's a beautiful little piece of Gemara that we'll look at later. That if the Jewish people weren't worthy, and this is in the title over here, Lakpil Pnei Aviyem Shebashamayim Pa'am Achat B'Chodesh Dayam. If the people were able to accept the divine presence upon themselves once a month, that would be enough. And how do we do that? We do that with Kiddush Levanah. Kiddush Levanah is Kabbalat Pnei Shechina. Now, and then the final point in the actual prayer is, the last thing that we say in the prayer is Aleinu l'shabeach, which is with which we conclude all of our prayers. As you know, Aleinu l'shabeach is a prayer that with which we end Shacharit, Mincha, and Arvit every day, but it originally appears in the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah. How is that relevant to this? So this is not a prayer service. It's not that on Kiddush Levanah days you have Shacharit, Mincha, Arvit, and then Kiddush Levanah. So what's the Aleinu doing at the end there? So I just want to summarize the points that we've noticed that are interesting, and then we're going to explore them. The first thing we spoke about was dancing in front of the moon. So I'd like to talk a little bit about how do we dance in front of the moon, what's going on there. The second thing I want to talk about is a reference to David Melech Yisrael. Why do we say David Melech Yisrael Chai v'Kayam? David, King of Israel, is alive. How is that part of this ceremony over here? That's the second thing I want to talk about. The third thing I want to talk about is this Kabbalat Pnei Shechina, that I'm accepting the divine presence through Kiddush Levanah. I'd like to examine that a little bit. And the final thing I want to speak about is Aleinu. How is this prayer Aleinu connected to Kiddush Levanah? Now, there could be 1,000 other things that we could talk about in this prayer, but these are the aspects of the prayer that I want to talk about today. Okay, Joy, comments, any ideas on any things, any of the anomalies that I've mentioned? Anyone have any thoughts on them?
You said shechakim, they translate to galaxies, but is there like a better way of, is another word?
I don't
better
have a
translation.
I don't know of a better one.
Okay.
Any comments on these points? Dancing, David Melech Yisrael, Aleinu Shabeach, divine presence. Yes.
The dancing, so what's the dancing exactly? Because I've seen people like jumping,
Yeah.
and after that they're dancing. So they're trying to in jumping. Does that mean that you're also dancing, or the dancing is after?
No. So there's
So
the truth is very, very interesting. There are halachic debates about dancing in front of the moon. If we speak about this ancient blessing, if I dance too much, I don't know if that's the word too much, but if I have to make clear that I'm dancing at the moon, not dancing to the moon. And therefore there are halachic limitations on how I dance when I dance in front of the moon. Some people I need as if I'm jumping up because I want to touch it, but I can't get that far. But there are other people that say that you should specifically not jump, but can move around, but make sure one of your feet are always on the ground in order to make it clear that I'm dancing not to the moon, but dancing at the moon. So we're going to in a few minutes, look at some of the sources that are quite precise on how we need to dance. But there are two dances, as you may know, in the Kiddush Levanah. There is a private dance when I say this blessing, and then immediately after saying the blessing, then I say Kashem Shani Rokeh Kenegdech, just as I am dancing in front of you, and then people do their own little shuffle, their own private dance. But often at the end of the ceremony, when we've said Aleinu, then the community often get together and we dance round in a circle. So the halachic dancing at the moon is this one over here. When I say Kashem Shani Rokeh Kenegdech, as I'm dancing in front of you, the moon. The Shulchan Aruch in limiting the dancing is really talking about that personal dance. But when we get as a community and we dance around in a circle, that's less of an issue because that's more of a sort of a standard practice. When someone gets engaged, or even on every Friday night we dance round in a circle, it's less moon centric, that the second dance. There is a debate that connects to this dance as well, and that is how much do I need to look at the moon during Kiddush Levanah? Do I need to look at the moon the whole time? And then there is a concern I might look like I am praying to the moon. But on the other hand, I need to see the moon in order to make the blessing. So there's the debate about, there are different opinions. Do I look at the moon, I see the moon, and then I say the prayer? Or do I look at the moon for the blessing, and then for the psukim afterwards, I look in the Siddur? Or can I look at the moon the whole time? In my community, what people tend to do is they look at the moon, but it's hard to say it's a mistake to do this, but often, just the way the moon is located in the sky, sometimes you end up not facing Mizrach. Let's say the whole shul is outside, and the old city is in that direction, but the moon's in the sky over there, so everyone is clearly facing the moon. What people tend to do is to look at the moon, but once they've seen the moon, then turn to the more traditional prayer direction, which is Mizrach. So I would have my back to the moon, but by doing that, I'm making it clear that I'm praying to God, acknowledging the moon, rather than having my back, as it were, to the Beit HaMikdash and facing the moon. You follow that? Oh, yes.
I had a question based on what you're saying, because I read in my Siddur, look briefly at the moon, and then don't look at the moon for the rest of Kiddush Levanah.
Oh, so that's exactly.
I was a little confused.
So that's exactly why that's it's to make it clear that I'm praying at the moon as opposed to praying to the moon, and that's also why there are halachot concerning the dance. That the dance, I imagine in previous, if we go back 1,000 years, 2,000 years, when people were worshipping all sorts of things, if we were to go outside and start dancing to the moon, people may attribute that to praying to the moon, and therefore halakha is quite clear on how to dance as well, to make it clear that I'm dancing at as opposed to dancing to, which is the same concern as the footnote in your siddur.
Now I did see somebody jump like mamash 2.5 feet in the air during Levanah.
So that's part of this Kenya. See
it looked kind of cool.
That's part of it.
Yeah, that is Ein Yacholin Go
The
Abach.
3 jumps, but I see a lot of people raise to their toes, and that's
Oh, so a lot, yeah, exactly. So that's it. Yeah, that is exactly the debate. Some people, Ein Yacholin Go Abach, it's not that I'm going to jump up, I'm going to go on my tiptoes, and I'm nowhere near there. But some people jump, and the jumpers are more concerned. It's not. There's no right and wrong here. The tiptoe people are saying, I'm praying to God. No one think that I'm trying to get to the moon. I'm not praying to the moon. And the jumpers are saying, I'm just so excited it's a very, very special mitzvah. And I'm jumping out of excitement for this mitzvah. And no one would think that I'm dancing to the moon.
I don't really feel like jumping up and down is really dancing either. It's kind of dancing.
So the truth is,
we're
it's
like doing some moon wave.
Often the psak here is more of a reflection of the temperament of a posek rather than, it's not rather than the it's not like deciding whether something is, kosher or not kosher, where there's clear halachic guidelines. Here, I think there's room for interpretation.
There's another consideration that kind of like triggered when you think about is if you're jumping towards the moon, but you're only raising to your tippy toes for Kiddush.
Good.
So it seems like
that's
giving
good.
more effort to blessing the moon than you are for.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, thank you for that. I just 2 snippets about the moon. First of all, I'm from England, and in England, as you know, it rains a lot of the time. In fact, we only discovered that the sky is blue after we made Aliyah. I mean, not exactly, but so Kiddush Levanah. I'll just tell you, Kiddush Levanah is a very precious mitzvah in England, because often you get to the time to say Kiddush Levanah, and we can't see the moon. It's quite painful. It can be quite hard. I was in England recently, as you know. It was just before Purim, so it was right at the end of the time to say Kiddush Levanah. And I saw this old man on a street in London, in the Jewish neighborhood, and he spent the last hour looking at the sky, waiting for a break in the clouds in order to say Kiddush Levanah. Oh my gosh, have you ever met people as holy as that? As Mama just wanted to give him a kiss like a Sefer Torah. That was a real, such a love for this special mitzvah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
last year was interesting because when I did Kiddush Levanah last year, I was in Iceland when I did it.
Oh, that's amazing.
Because it always gets dark later there. And like there you always see the moon. Like there's not really much of an issue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool then.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, fair mod. Okay, I want to go through some halachot. Beseder? I summarize them over here, but then we're going to look into some of these halachot in a bit more detail inside sources. So, Kiddush Levanah has to be recited outdoors. You can't sit inside and look at the moon through a window. You have to be outdoors in order to say Kiddush Levanah. And we say it once a month, celebrating the new moon. Now, this is very interesting. The ideal time to say Kiddush Levanah is on a Motzei Shabbat. Do you know why we say on a Motzei Shabbat? Because on Motzei Shabbat, immediately after Ma'ariv, I'm still wearing my Shabbat clothes, my Big Day Shabbat. And Kiddush Levanah is such an important blessing that I want to be wearing special clothing in order to say Kiddush Levanah. Now, you'll ask, if it's such an important mitzvah and I want to wear my best clothing for it, so then I should say Kiddush Levanah on a Friday night. Why wait till after Shabbat? We should finish davening before Kiddush, before all the stains from all the meals are on my shirt. Let me make Kiddush Levanah on a clean white shirt at the beginning of Shabbat, rather than on a dirty white shirt at the end of Shabbat. And do you know why we do it on Motzei Shabbat? The reason, the halachic reason, is such a mechayev. Mechayev, it's like it forces us to treat this mitzvah seriously. There is a halachic principle of ein ma'arvin simcha b'simcha. You can't mix two types of joy at the same time. Shabbat is one joy, and Kiddush Levanah is not just a bracha, it's a joy. And those, you have to, like after Shabbat, I can't mix those two. If I'm totally immersed in Shabbat, I can't give Kiddush Levanah the unique joy that it deserves. You follow? It would distract from Shabbat. A bit like why there are no weddings on Chol HaMoed. You don't, because I'm the simcha of Yom Tov and the simcha of a wedding. So one of them would lose out if I tried to experience both at the same time. Now, why do I call, just one line, why do I call that a mechayev? Because it means that Kiddush Levanah has to be recited with joy. It's the highlight of my month. It's an honor to be able to make this blessing. It's so important that I can't say it on a Friday night because I'm worried that my joy in saying Kiddush Levanah would decrease my enjoyment of Shabbat. Halavai, we should all be able to say Kiddush Levanah on a Motzei Shabbat to the level that, had I been saying it on Shabbat, it would have impacted my joy of Shabbat. You follow? Rather than just like words that you rattle off. Yes.
I was gonna say because like you're saying what I was saying that's why part when you do Havdalah from Shabbos into Yom Tov, you don't say the bracha on the Besamin also.
Right.
Yeah. So it is because it's going in for still something holy you're going into.
Yeah.
What is it? Right.
You do you do make a Havdalah. You make Havdalah from Shabbos to Yom Tov.
But you don't use Besamin.
Correct. Because you lower. Yeah, you're softening the blow.
Yeah.
By going into Yom Tov.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to mention two other halachot. Okay. They are both from the same idea as this point over here. One is, you don't say it in the month of Av until after Tisha B'Av. Why would you not say it until after Tisha B'Av?
Because you don't want to
Yeah, I can't give it the joy that it needs if I do it before Tisha B'Av. That's number one. And number two is also, we wait till after Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is not so much about joy, it's intense. I can't really, give it the simcha attention that it requires. I wouldn't be able to do that before Tisha B'Av or before Yom Kippur. Now, just a little halachic footnote to that. What a lot of people do, and I'm going to come back to the Palace of the King here at the Machon, if you daven in somewhere that's not the Palace of the King, like Machon Meir, what they would do is, you would, at the end of Tisha B'Av, there's Ma'ariv, and then immediately after Ma'ariv, we'll say Kiddush Levanah. Now, what's the problem of saying Kiddush Levanah immediately after Ma'ariv on Tisha B'Av?
Hungry?
Yeah, but I'm still wearing my morning clothes. Do you remember? I don't wear my leather. And we said, I davka say on Motzei Shabbat, because on Motzei Shabbat, I'm wearing Big Day Shabbat. So not only am I not wearing my weekday clothes, even worse. So when you live in a place like Machon Meir or any yeshiva, I live in the Palace of the King. So what they do is, you make Havdalah, you daven Arvit, and then everyone changes into proper shoes, and then come back again, and then you can do Kiddush Levanah wearing appropriate attire. But when you don't live in the Palace of the King, you will not be at the shul, there's a minyan at 7:30, so everybody come back in 10 minutes with your shoes on, so no one's going to come back later. So they just do Kiddush Levanah immediately. You follow? Okay. That's just a snippet on this Havdalah. Oh, another point, the final point before we start looking in detail is, when's the earliest time you can say Kiddush Levanah in the months? There is actually an argument, a three-way argument. Now, today was the Yom, that's why today is Rosh Chodesh. Today was the Yom of the Molad. Molad means the rabbis calculated through very complicated mathematics many years ago when the sighting of the new moon would be, and they got it down to the hour and the minute of when the moon's gonna be seen for the first time, and that happened today. So if I go out tonight and see the moon, can I say Kiddush Levanah? On that issue, there's a fascinating debate. And listen to this. There are two conflicting values here. On the one hand, I want to make a blessing at the very first opportunity. As soon as I see a slither of moon, I want to be able to make a blessing on this slither of moon. On the other hand, I want to make a blessing on the moon. I don't want to just on a slither. Wait until I've got a bit of moon to make a blessing on. You follow? And that's a very complicated debate. And it is resolved, it's not really resolved, but it results in two different customs. The custom of the Ashkenazim and the custom of the Sfaradim. Well, first of all, according to the Rambam, but I'm not sure if people follow that position, and that is, if you go out tonight and see a slither of moon, that's your first opportunity. You should make Kiddush Levanah tonight. However, the Ashkenazi custom is that you need to wait for 3 days. So it's not the third of the month, but let's say the molad, meaning the first sighting of the moon, was I don't know, let's say at 10:46, right? So then you count 3 days from that, and then once you get 3 days past that molad, then you can say Kiddush Levanah. You follow? The Ashkenazim say 3 days based on halachic sources. The Zohar, because it's a very mystical prayer, praying to the moon, they want a moon. You like a geschmack. You need a proper moon in order to make this blessing. And they say you have to wait for 7 days. It's not enough to wait for 3 days. You have to wait for 7 days. And they make the blessing after, until 7 days, until the middle of the month. So for Ashkenazim, you have almost 2 weeks. And for Sfaradim, you have 1 week. But the custom is to make it on the Motzei Shabbat. So even though, let's say, the 7th day might come up on a Tuesday, you wouldn't make Kiddush Levanah on the Tuesday night. You would wait till the following Motzei Shabbat in order to make Kiddush Levanah, unless you live in England, where if on Tuesday night, by some miracle, there's no clouds, you'll do it at the first opportunity, because it could well be cloudy and then if I wait, and then I'll miss it, and then I'll never have the opportunity to make the blessing. This particular month, Iyar, Rosh Chodesh, we're celebrating today, so the Molad was today, that's Wednesday to Thursday, Friday to Shabbat, right? So this coming Motzei Shabbat, Ashkenazim will say Kiddush Levanah, but Sfaradim will not say Kiddush Levanah, because it will have been after 3 days, which is enough time for Ashkenazim, but it will be under 7 days, so it won't be enough time for Sfaradim. Okay, yes?
Good question. I've been in this awkward situation a few times where I've done Kiddush Levanah by by Ashkenazim, and then I'll be davening next Motzei Shabbat by Sephardim, and then they will go out to do Kiddush Levanah, and then I don't know what to do. Am I supposed to hang out, follow the motions, or?
So you can only do it once.
Yeah.
So if you're an Ashkenazi and you've already done Kiddush Levanah, and then you daven the following week in the Sephardi shul, so then you can hang around for the dancing, but you wouldn't say the text twice. Yeah, it's a once in a month opportunity. Okay, that's in terms of some of the halachot. Any questions on any of the halachot? Any other halachic questions? Okay, so now I want to talk more about some of the ideas that we mentioned in the prayers. I want to speak about why the moon. I want to talk about accepting the divine presence. And then at the end, I want to speak about dancing and King David. Okay, so why the moon? So the Shulchan Aruch, in the laws of Kiddush Levanah, writes like this. We're now on page number 2. Haro'eh Levanah b'chidusha. Somebody who sees a new moon, mevarech, you make a blessing. Asher b'ma'amaro barash chakim, v'ruach piv kol tzva'am, created the galaxies. V'chol kuzman natalem shelo yishanu et tafkidam. Ve'ein lekadesh hachodesh ele balayla be'esh haLevanah zorachat v'nehenim me'ora. You can only make a blessing on the moon when you can see the moon. So it's a nighttime blessing. You have to say outdoors at night. That's the Shulchan Aruch. Now, as you may know, the Shulchan Aruch, one of the magical things about the Shulchan Aruch is the number of commentaries that there are on the Shulchan Aruch. One of the more recent commentaries, written about 100 years ago, is a commentary written by Rav Baruch Halevi Epstein called Aruch HaShulchan. So Shulchan Aruch means the set table, meaning I'm going to present halakha in a clear and concise manner that you know what you need to do. And the Aruch HaShulchan is like the set table and then the setting of the table setting and the setting table. You know, sort of so he's expounding on the ideas inside the Shulchan Aruch, and in this particular footnote, it's not really a footnote actually, because the Aruch HaShulchan, I'll just digress just for 1 minute. There are different commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch. Most commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch comment on a bit like Chumash with Rashi. You have the text, and then they do little asterisks, and then they comment on that text. What the Aruch HaShulchan did was, he took the text of the Shulchan Aruch, and he wrote a book as his commentary on it. You follow? So you can read the Aruch HaShulchan without a Shulchan Aruch. Like you would never read Rashi without a Chumash, or you would never read the Mishnah Berurah without a Shulchan Aruch. But you could read the Aruch HaShulchan without the Shulchan Aruch, because he really wrote his commentary into a new text. But his commentary is based on what we just read in the Shulchan Aruch. As you can see, it's siman, same siman, Tov, Kaf, Vav. And on that question, why do we make a blessing on the moon? The Aruch HaShulchan writes, why make a blessing on the moon? והיא קטנה כמעט מכל הכוכבים, מפני שהיא קרובה לארץ יותר מכל הכוכבים, שאינו רחוקה מן הארץ רק בערך מ"ג,000 פרסה, ובה נראית לנו בחוש גדולתו של הקדוש ברוך הוא בכל לילה ולילה, מהילוכה המורגש, והיקפה את הארץ בכל חודש. He's saying the truth is, I could make this blessing of God's wonder on anything, meaning there's like billions and billions of stars. Why don't I make it on another star? Why dafka on the moon? And explains that Aruch HaShulchan is because of the unique relationship between the moon and Earth, because the moon orbits the Earth. It's the star that we see. Like I can monitor the moon more than I can monitor any other star. I can see it. I see it waxing and waning. I don't know enough about other planets in the solar system to see, when I look at Saturn through my telescope in, I don't know, the beginning of the month, does it look different to the way if I would see Saturn at the end of the month? Or I don't know to what extent they all look the same. They don't change. But because the moon is orbiting around Earth, so I see it. I have like a relationship with the moon more than any other planet. But do you know what the Aruch HaShulchan is trying to explain? It goes back. It's the same point as this dancing business. I'm not praying to the moon. The moon is one example of a planet. A moon that has a fixed orbit around our planet that I can see and I monitor, and I can express my appreciation of God's infinity by looking at this tiny little star and thinking that there are billions like it all around, but this is the one that I can see, so therefore I make a blessing on this one. But it's not about the moon, it's about God. But the moon is the thing through which I can see God most clearly. You follow? But you see, he's touching on the same point of this dancing issue. He's very cautious to make sure no one thinks we're doing a moon dance. You follow? It's It happens to be the moon, but it's about God. Okay, that's one reason. Okay. Now he says over here, Yisrael, the Jewish people, are compared to the moon. Why? Just like the moon doesn't have any of its own light, but it only reflects light, so too the Jewish people receive their inspiration from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You follow? So, the moon is not a source of light. The moon reflects light. So too, we the Jewish people are a reflection of God's light. We are not a source of light, but we are a reflection of light, and therefore the moon, perhaps more than other stars, might have their own source of light. So we are compared to the moon. That's number one. And the second way that we are similar to the moon is that the moon waxes and wanes. And just like the moon, we have times when we are complete, and we have moments when we are incomplete. Meaning, the moon has ups and downs. We also have ups and downs, as everybody knows very, very well. So that's a second parallel between us and the moon. So the Aruch HaShulchan has said three things. First of all, he said we're at the moon rather than to the moon. And it just so happens that the moon I can monitor, I see it clearer than anything else. I can see it with the naked eye, the waxing and the waning of the moon. That's the first reason why it's the moon. Second is that the Jewish people are like the moon in two ways. First of all, we're like the moon because we reflect God's light, and because just like the moon, we have good days and bad days. Yes. Were you gonna add something? Oh, can you just remind me? I'm so sorry.
Fabrizio.
Thank you so much.
And I was reading Sefer Todah, and say like the moon is at 15 days, so it means 15 days go up, and the 15 go down. So
Yeah.
any kingdom was 15 days, no more than 15 days, or no any kingdom lasts more than 13 days. No, like
What?
no any kingdom lasts 13 generations, something like this.
Ah, really?
But is that an example?
That's so interesting.
Is there some example in Judaism exists more than 13 generations?
Yes, I think you are right. I think there were 15. I think there were 15 kings in the of the kingdom of Judah. Are you agreeing?
Or 50.
There is. You're quite right. There was if you go through. I don't know well enough offhand now. But I think you might be referring to that if you go through the generations of Malchut Beit David, meaning of the Davidic kingdom from King David to Shlomo, and then after that through the generations, and maybe it was 13, maybe it was 14, but I think it didn't get to 15, and it's because we are like the moon waxes and wanes. We can't sustain it for more than 15. That's so interesting. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
I've read that years ago, and I think that's the case.
I think it is. I think there's 14.
Is there 14?
I think there is, yeah.
Simcha, you're a superstar.
Kind of 14 unless I miscounted one, but yeah.
Excellent.
There's something I read related to this. The first part of Likutei Moharan.
Mm-hmm.
Rabbi Nachman talks exactly about this. How when you go to the Beit Midrash, Bnei Yisrael is compared to the moon because we just receive the light from Hashem. We just open up and. Also the Shulchan says this, but it's interesting because there's the prophecy also from Yeshaya that in
Where's he
the
gone?
Olam Abadi.
Oh, Yeshaya. We had Yeshaya here a few minutes ago.
Right. But the moon will be as great as the sun.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
It was just another source of
That's very interesting. Talking about this reflected light, I'll just tell you, you reminded me of something very, very sweet. I heard in the name of Rav Soloveitchik, and I use this whenever I go to a Pidyon Haben. If ever you go to a Pidyon Haben, this is a gift for you to share with the people there. The blessing that we say to a little child at the Pidyon Haben, Zeh hakatan gadol yihiyeh. This little one should become big. What sort of blessing is that? I mean, please God, if we feed him enough and with God's help, I mean, everything is a miracle. But it's cute, but you sort of assume that to be the case. I mean, we can't assume anything, but I wouldn't say that's my. It's a prayer that every parent has for their child. But in the normal course of events, and Be'ezrat Hashem, we should all be blessed with that. Little children do become big children. Ze'ah katan gadol yiyeh. But Rav Soloveitchik explained that the word katan, the first time the word katan is used in the Torah, is talking about the moon. Ma'orah katan.
Oh.
The first time the word gadol is used in the Torah is the sun. Ze'ah katan means this moon should become like a sun. A child, when they're little, is just a reflection of a parent. So if a child is polite, they're polite because their parents are polite. If a child is a bit, out of control, it's probably because things aren't quite stable at home. You know what I mean? A child is a reflection of the parents. They are like the moon. They are katan. But the blessing is that every child who starts life just as a reflection of those people around them will eventually become the source of light. So that which was moon-like should become like a sun. You hear that? Okay. That was just as an aside. Okay. That is concerning our connection to the moon. I want to speak about acceptance of the divine presence. We said that with the Kiddush Levanah is a little bit like Kabbalat Pnei Shechina. So this is based on the Gemara in Sanhedrin, and in fact, we actually read from this Gemara in Sanhedrin and that's part of the text. Part of the text of the Kiddush Levanah is this Braita from the Gemara in Sanhedrin. The Gemara tells us, if the Jewish people would accept the divine presence on them once a month, that would be fine. Hilkach Ne'emra, and that's because of this accepting of God, of the divine presence. That's why Kiddush Levanah needs to be said outdoors. Okay, that's the Gemara in Sanhedrin that became part of the source. So we are sort of accepting the divine presence of us on ourselves once a month through Kiddush Levanah. Now, what does that mean? That has two very interesting ramifications. First of all, the way we say it, and then I want to share with you a crazy story. Okay, so first of all, the ramifications, we say it on Motzei Shabbat. Why? Because that's when I'm accepting the divine presence on me. I want to say it when I'm wearing appropriate attire in order to do this. You follow? And that's also why I'm dancing. That's why I say it b'simcha, because it is, I'm attesting to God's, sovereignty over everything through my Kiddush Levanah prayer. You follow? Now, I want to take this one step further. This is a crazy, crazy story. The Be'er Heitev is a commentary, as you know, on the Shulchan Aruch. He quotes a book called Or Chadash. I'm not familiar with this book, Or Chadash, but he tells a story. Be'er Heitev, just for you to know, is a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. He summarizes some of the previous commentators on the Shulchan Aruch. So sometimes when people haven't got a lot of time to learn Shulchan Aruch, they'll learn the Shulchan Aruch and then they'll jump straight to the Be'er Heitev, who often provides a good summary of previous commentators on the Shulchan Aruch. But he's not like this mystical. Anyway, listen to what he says about Kiddush Levanah. Ma'aseh, there's a story be'echad shepikao akum balayla. He was approached by a non-Jew at night. V'ratzu lehargo. And these people came with evil intent and they wanted to kill him. Uvikesh, and he asked them, she'anichu lo lasot mitzvah achat kodem moto. Let me perform one mitzvah before you kill me. V'halvana hayta b'chidusha, and it was the time to say Kiddush Levanah. V'kidsha b'kavana gdola, and he said Kiddush Levanah that night with great intensity. V'na'asa lo nes, a miracle happened to him. Kashedilek gimul palim k'minhag, when he jumped in order to dance in front of the moon, he danced 3 times. We say that Kashem shani roked kenedech, as I dance in front of you, moon, and I say those verses and I'm dancing in front of the moon, I say that 3 times. So he jumped 3 times, and each one he traveled like he jumped like, I don't know, 100 kilometers, another 100 kilometers. Anyway, at the end of it, Nitzal Mehem, he was miles away, like he was saved from these evil people because he of the intensity with which he did Kiddush Levanah. But it's not written in like, it's not like a children's storybook here. This is a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. You don't belittle these sorts of sources. They're not like sorcerers. It's not like a book of like fables. It's a comment on the Shulchan Aruch. Okay. Now I'm just trying to tell you how significant this story is. It's a crazy story. There was a guy who was saved from death through saying Kiddush Levanah. That dance in front of the moon sort of transported him. Anyway, and then he says, Shamati, I've heard, mipi shemi shekidesh Levanah, if somebody says Kiddush Levanah properly, miyom shekidsha shuv lo yid'ag sheyamut ba'oto chodesh me'oto yom va'elech. You will be saved from death from that day till the end of that month. Meaning, this Kabbalat Pnei Shechina that I say in Kiddush Levanah will provide me with protection from the day I say it until the end of the month. Whew. I'm so excited for Ashkenazim in this room. We're going to be saying Kiddush Levanah this coming Motzei Shabbat in our Shabbat clothes.
Oh, it's the earliest possible date, no?
Yes,
For
yeah,
us,
exactly.
Ashkenaz, yeah.
For Ashkenazim, we'll be saying it this coming Motzei Shabbat. So try not to spill too much on Shabbat, so you can say it with your beautiful big day Shabbat that will still be spick and span after wearing them for 24 hours. Okay.
They really should have like Shabbat bibs. I would use one. I would buy
That's
one.
like a
Moishla, you are such an entertaining person. Okay, I want to talk now. There are 3 more little topics. I want to go quickly through them. First one is dancing. We mentioned it, but I want to look at the sources inside. This dance. On the one hand, I'm dancing Kabbalat Pnei Shechina. We saw the dance quoted in this book Or Chadash that saved this guy's life through the moon dance that he did. However, it has to be clear that I'm dancing at rather than dancing to. So how do I make this at to business clear? So let's go to the Shulchan Aruch. And then we're going to go look at 2 commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch that are quite narrow it. Toleh einav miyasher raglav u'mevarech. The way to say it is, you look and you stand with your feet straight and you make the blessing. V'omer shlosha pamim simon tov u'maz tov she'ilanu l'chol Yisrael. He says all these things that you say 3 times. I'm going to skip all of this. 1 second. V'lachen, do you see this dance over here? V'lachen osim smachot v'roktim b'kiddush HaChodesh. When I dance for Rosh Chodesh, dugmat simchat nisuin. I dance at Kiddush Levanah like I dance at a wedding. Isn't that crazy? This is the Shulchan Aruch. Not I don't know, like somebody who's very, very cautious in his presentation of halakha. When the Shulchan Aruch describes my dancing as something that I need to do like I would dance at a wedding, I think that's certainly something that's worth thinking about. I want to look at some of the commentaries on this. 1 second. The second comment of the Mishnah Berurah, Roked. So Achronim, the later authorities wrote, Yizaher ma'od shelo yichra birchav lirkod. You shouldn't bend your knees when you're dancing. Delo yehi nira kekorea lelevana, because if I were to bend my knees, people might think I'm bowing to the moon. So therefore, when I jump, ideally, I should be on tiptoes. And if I do jump, I should jump straight rather than jumping bent, so that nobody should think that this was an action of bowing. So my floor dancing should be with straight knees. You follow? If my feet are on the ground, so then it's clear I'm not dancing at the moon, to the moon, I'm dancing at, not to. But if I'm jumping, I should jump with my knee, like this, rather than like that. You follow? Is that clear to everybody? So when I say Kashem Shani Rokeken Endech, you jump on the spot with straight knees. Is that clear to everybody?
Do you want someone to demonstrate?
Yeah, you go. Yeah, you do. Go off, you go.
Oh, I'm not. I just want to try it because I'm not sure. I've never tried to jump without bending my knees. Just in a
Yeah, that's excellent. Then we can. Yeah, good. Go on.
It's tough.
Yes, great.
No, it's very hard because you need to do a micro bend, otherwise it's just like
Yeah, micro bends are okay.
impossible.
Oh,
Like that?
Oh.
perfect. Perfect. Everyone hang out. We're going to hang out with you on a Motzei show. Anyone else wants to try doing a Kiddush Levanah dance?
That's how I used to go to yeshiva when I was young. They used to do a moonwalk kind of. They used to do dancing. Because you don't have to bend your knees for it. And
Of course you do.
No, you don't.
No, it's moving. It's also about keeping your feet on the ground.
No, you can do it. You have to bend your knees.
Good. Do you want to demonstrate that, or you'll be okay?
A knee bend.
Also, you don't have to turn your back also away from the moon. So.
Okay, that's concerning the dancing. He mentions over here the Mishnah Berurah's first comment is about whether you look at the moon or whether you don't look at the moon. Here, the Mishnah Berurah follows your Siddur footnote. Was it your Siddur's footnote? That I look at the moon and then I look at the Siddur, rather than look at the moon as I say the blessing, to make it clear that I'm praying to God about the moon rather than praying to the moon. Okay, 2 more quick points. And that is, I want to talk about this reference to King David. So, the Gemara told us earlier, on the previous page, in fact, what we read on the previous page was from the text of Kiddush Levanah. So the Marashah on Masechet Sanhedrin talks about this connection to the kingdom of David. Why do we say David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayam? So first of all, there's a connection, as you know, between King David and Rosh Chodesh. You know that the laning that we read on when tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh. You know there's a story. Do you know there's a story about King David wasn't sure how King Saul felt about him, and they had a monthly party, and at this monthly party, Saul's son Jonathan went to the party, the Rosh Chodesh party. Machar Chodesh is how the Haftorah starts, and he said if when they were going to fire arrows, and if he says the arrows are this way, then David will know that Saul thinks is forgiven, sort of has mended the relationship with King David. And if he says something else about the arrows and indicates they haven't fixed their relationship, and unfortunately, Jonathan reports that they haven't fixed it, and then King David realizes that it's a beginning, sort of this, the relationship with Saul's got a bit tricky. Anyway, that was it. Yeah. So there's sort of like this connection between the shift from Shaul to David happens around this Rosh Chodesh meal. It's this big Rosh Chodesh festival that it becomes clear to King David that King Saul is not going to be the king. It's going to be him. That's one thing. But the second thing, and this connects to something that I was discussing with somebody else earlier, and that is about this relationship between King David. Oh, that's it, exactly what we're saying. Malchut Beit David. The Midrash tells us that the after 15 days, the month starts going weak. Kach Malchut Beit David achar shayu mizar'o tetvav malachim nechsar hamalchut b'mei Tzidkiyahu. He also lasted for 15 generations until it started to wax and wane. But David, like you were saying earlier, there were 15 generations of kings, and then, just like the moon, it's 15 days strong, and then 15 days weak. But just like the moon, it waxes and wanes, but then it comes back again. So David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayam, meaning that there could be good days and there could be bad days, but the relationship is forever. You follow what I'm saying? Meaning, it's not that King David is over after 15 generations, but those 15 generations, which is the maximum they can sustain, and then after that, it's going to go a bit dark, but don't worry, it's going to come light again.
Yeah.
Like the waxing and waning of the moon is a metaphor for the Malchut Beit David. Sometimes it's clear to us, Malchut Beit David, you know that God's presence, the ultimate king, Moshiach will come soon. That's clear, and then sometimes it's not so clear. Bit like the moon that comes up and down. So too the kingdom of King David is sometimes clear, and sometimes it looks like we're so far away from it, but it's forever. Even at those times when it looks dark, no, David Melech Yisrael Chai v'Kayam. Okay. Joy, happiness, everything clear? Okay, the final point is that we conclude Kiddush Levanah with Aleinu. How's Aleinu part of the service here? And that Aleinu, as you know, what we say. What do we say in Aleinu? You'll all get this. What do we do? This connects to your dance. What do we say? Anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim. I want to make it clear, just in case I didn't get the dance perfect, just in case I bent my knees and you might think, don't worry, now I'm going to show you, this is the real thing. It's sort of I want to make it absolutely clear that I'm praying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and not praying to the moon. So I was cautious in saying Kiddush Levanah not to bow. So now I'm going to bow to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in order that it should be clear to anybody who might have wondered what I was doing. It should be clear that I'm praying to God in front of the moon rather than doing anything in front of the moon, which is why I conclude the Kiddush Levanah with Aleinu L'Shabeach.
So you should make sure that you're not facing the moon when you say Aleinu.
Yes, well, the Mishnah Berurah points out you should look at the moon, and then once you've seen the moon, then face the direction in which you pray and say Kiddush Levanah. Yeah, I need to observe the moon before Kiddush Levanah, but I don't need to see the moon throughout Kiddush Levanah.
Is that the halacha that we turn away from the moon and face the Kodesh Kodashim?
So the truth, I can only tell you what in the shul that I normally daven at here in Jerusalem, most people do that.
Because I was at the Zubnik shul, and there was some people who did it, and some people were just facing in the other direction.
Yeah, I don't think it's critical. I think it's more to do with looking at the moon or not looking at the moon. I think sometimes people their natural tendency is to follow Mizrach. I don't think there's a requirement in the Mishnah Berurah. It doesn't mention any requirement to face Mizrach when I'm saying Kiddush Levanah. But there is a debate about looking at the moon or not looking at the moon. But I imagine, even if I'm saying Aleinu L'Shabeach out of my Siddur and I say Anachnu korim u'mishtachavim, it's clear that I'm saying it to God, even if, because my eyes will be in the Siddur, my eyes won't be Anachnu korim, there'll be Anachnu korim, it will be clear that it's, even if the direction is not the moon, even if the direction is not Mizrach, it's clear that it's God and not the moon. Does that make, yes?
I just have a question about Elena in general. I was reading it when I was trying to learn more about the prayer, and I was reading that in, like, for instance, in the times of Rambam, it was not part of the daily prayer service.
Right.
And that, in some like very old Siddurim, that the first paragraph of the paragraph was added later on. I like, both paragraphs, so I say both, but I'm wondering just about, I think there are still some communities who maybe recite the first half of Aleinu.
So Aleinu is a very, very interesting prayer. It was an effort to introduce a little bit of Yamim Noraim into my daily life. Unfortunately, for some people, it's sort of like it has the opposite. Meaning, I say Aleinu every day, and then when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, I remember this from Tuesday morning. But it has the opposite it reminds me of every day on Rosh Hashanah, but really it's supposed to remind me of Rosh Hashanah every day. But it's not. You're right. It's not when Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, when the men of the Great Assembly instituted prayer. They instituted, as you know, Birkot HaShachar, and then Psukei Zimra, and then Shema and the Brachot, and then Aleinu. Then the Amidah. Aleinu was added later in an effort to connect us every day to the Yamim Noraim. But it wasn't originally part of the service. Okay, I'm going to pause on this beautiful, beautiful blessing. Now, I just want to remind everybody what we said. We discussed this beautiful prayer, which is Kiddush Levanah or Birkat Levanah. We spoke about our relationship to the moon. We spoke about Kabbalat Ol Malchut, accepting the divine presence upon ourselves. We spoke about King David. We spoke about dancing in front of the moon, that we're praying at the moon rather than to the moon. It's a monthly recognition of the infinity of God, which is just by gazing at the moon, which is the nearest opportunity for us with a naked eye to see the infinity of God is the looking at the moon. I could have said it on many things, but to appreciate his infinity, in order to appreciate that, the moon is the easiest tool with which to do that. Big Day Shabbat, Simcha, David Melech Yisrael, Aleinu Shabbat at the end. We should all be blessed with a wonderful month, Be'ezrat Hashem. Yishar Koach to everybody.